Good evening, everybody. This is Spencer Keck. This is my Hillbilly Think Tank coming at you live from Tunnel Hills in Elizabethtown. And as you know, I am running for Magistrate District 3 here in Hardin County. I'm just recording this one early. It's actually the 23rd before, but yeah, going to go ahead and record this one for the 24th because I'm sure I will be doing stuff with my family and waiting for that midnight countdown for the baby Jesus to go lay in the manger. So this will be my Merry Christmas to y'all. Now, as I was thinking about Christmas and all the times while I was in the military that I had to miss Christmas at home, you know, quite a few times in my time from 1990 all the way to 2014 when I retired. Yeah, there were many Christmases I was deployed, either in a combat zone or on a deployment where we were just waiting for something to happen, hoping it wouldn't. Um, but it was on a Christmas the, right after the first Gulf War. Um, our ship had gone into the yards to be retrofitted and to be worked on. And this was, like I said, right after the first Gulf War. We had gotten our combat action ribbon in that war, seen plenty of action, missiles coming in that we had to shoot down, mines that we came very close to hitting so many times, at least 14, 15 times. We had each of them, those mines painted up on the side of the ship for everybody to see when we got back. So many times we have to send EOD out either to be inserted via helicopter or to go out in our captain's gig or motor whaleboat and go out, attach explosives to the mines, blow them up real close too many times to getting hit. We were actually with the ships that did get hit one night. We had about 2-3 ships got hit right in that we'd just been floating right in that area all day long, picking up mines. That night, those ships got hit by mines. So that was quite an experience in the Gulf War. Come back from that war, we're in the yards where we, paint the ship, do all the repairs that need to be done so it can be ready for the next deployment. And I remember that I went out, I think it was either Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve, probably had to have been New Year's Eve, but at the same time, holiday season. And I hadn't been able to go to see my family at home, but I decided to go out with my friends. We went to downtown Jacksonville, Florida, went to a place called the Milk Bar, actually a place where if you were under 21, which I was at the time, you can go dance. They'd stamp your hand so you didn't drink anything while you're in there. But I did have a good time. Before we went to the Milk Bar, went out to eat with a bunch of friends at some great restaurants, partied all night, got back 3-4 in the morning when the either a cab dropped me off or I got a ride with some of the other guys. And I was so exhausted by the time I came back in, watched some holiday movies. I'm like, my rack was one of the top ones, 4 or 5 high. I'm like, I don't feel like climbing up in there. So clothes on and all, rolled into an empty rack, means bed for those of you who aren't naval oriented, and took a little nap. Thought, I'll just get a couple hours of sleep before I got to get up and go out and enjoy my time, a little more time off. Well, no, sometime early in the morning, I hear someone shouting, "Hey, what are you doing in there?" And I rolled over to have Ren 1010 sniffing me right in the nose, right in the face. Oh, pretty scary. Couldn't believe it. Well, the shore patrol or the base security personnel were doing a drug sweep of my ship. And they told me, "Hey, what are you doing here? Everybody's supposed to be off the ship. Why are you there?" They thought I was hiding, obviously, which I wasn't. As I'm going out of my berthing, I see one of my fellow sailors. I think it's an E5. He had this very pained look on his face as they're going through all of his clothes, had to take out some socks, which looked like they might have had some stuff stuffed into them. And as I'm seeing that as I go by, being escorted off by security. And turns out a couple of our sailors, one of them that was actually the sailor of the quarter. This is an engineer, E5, E4, E4, E5. It was the sailor of the year for the ship. He had gotten busted for drugs, and actually even dealing drugs. A couple of the sailors had received an order into supply, and it turned out they had made it look like they were ordering filters for the ship for the engines. When actually they ordered 9mm, and they had gotten a whole slew of 9mm pistols and taken them, received them, but they had not gone to the armory. So when these two guys got busted selling drugs in Jacksonville, Florida, and the undercover sheriffs busted them, they had these 9mm stuffed down their waistband. So that whole day, that morning, after these guys were busted, we had the whole ship's crew that was actually there, not at home, on vacation. Anybody that was unfortunate enough to live on the ship like I did, we were all stuck either on the pier, and we were watching half of the engineering department, half of the deck department, which I at the time worked for because I hadn't become a corpsman yet. They were being marched off the ship in handcuffs. So anyone who had partied with these guys, ever been seen gone out with these guys, you were taken in for questioning and you were drug tested. We lost literally, I say half, it was more than half of the engineering department, almost half of the deck department, quite a bit other departments on the ship were hit. But again, they took, apparently when they grilled these guys, they found out who was ever seen leaving the ship or hanging out in town with these guys, And I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, since I didn't have a car, there had been one time I got in a ride with these guys. And it was interesting, man. They had the best rice burner on the pier. Inside this car, they had thumping stereo system, which, back in the early 90s, man, that was the thing to have. It gave me a nice back massage in the back seat. It was thumping so good as we were going down the road. That was the only time I'd ever been out with the guys. Luckily, just getting a ride with them, I guess no one remembered that. And so, but I had never been partying with them like apparently everyone else had. So they were busted for not only dealing drugs out in town, but having these pistols. And they had given pistols away to the people on the ship to keep them quiet, given them to family members as Christmas presents. But why do I bring this story up? What relevance does it have to today's politics? Well, we've got Epstein files that are out. I find it interesting how all these people that we know are in the files, that we know are seen with Epstein, why aren't they being marched in public out to tell us what they were actually doing with Epstein all the times they were with him? We know there are many people who did a lot of partying with him and hanging out with him. Like say, if they're in the military, yeah, they would be marched in for questioning, handcuffed. Just do that march of shame, just like those guys did that came off the ship that day in 1991. Military, we have a lot higher expectations of folks and their behavior than we have for our politicians and our millionaires that were hanging out with Epstein. Now, I can think of so many other holidays that I missed. Uh, I was on deployment when the attack happened, 2001. My grandma died later in September. I didn't get to go home for her funeral because I was protecting the nation from further attack. So many of us were on deployment at that time. Thousands of us were in that amphibious readiness group, the Marine Expeditionary Unit, Special Operations Qualified that I was in. We were the first ones into Pakistan, then Afghanistan. Missed Thanksgiving in the United States, missed Christmas in the United States, missed my 30th birthday, wasn't in the United States, missed New Year's Eve, New Year's, wasn't in the United States. But this Christmas, are any of these pedophiles that are on that list, that redacted list, are they being marched through a march of shame, handcuffed, right in front of the whole nation for what they did to those young girls? Nary a one. We got troops right now sitting on ships off the coast of Venezuela in the Caribbean, and troops stuck in Vieques, Puerto Rico. Of course, couldn't think of a nicer place actually to be than in Puerto Rico this time of year. But still, they're not with their family. I'm sure they'd like to be. Thousands of troops, sailors, Marines, waiting to see, are they going to be sent into Venezuela? Are they going to be the diversion for the pedophiles to keep them from having to be accountable? What is it that we're going to roll out this season? Because we know that the folks are at the top of this. They don't care about the season. They just care about their necks. They know what they got away with for so many years and they expect to still get away with it. They're still being guarded by the Department of Justice. Are we going to give those women the justice they need as a real Christmas present? I hope and pray we do, but hope and prayers isn't enough. Only us constantly calling our senators, our House of Representatives, going to their offices, being constantly in their email box, their actual physical mailbox, filling up their voicemail with demands for justice for these women as a Christmas present to America. Not just as a Christmas present to those girls who need these justice, right? They need that justice now. But this is a present for all of America because we're all now suffering at the hands of fools. We need justice for our economy and justice for these girls. So release the unredacted Epstein files. That will make us have a Merry, Merry Christmas. Y'all, have a Merry Christmas. We are brothers and sisters keepers. We love our neighbors just as much as we love ourselves because that's the Kentucky way. United we stand, divided we fall. God bless your corazón. Feliz Navidad. Merry Christmas.